Ladies and gentlemen, this is Vadim Gluzman. I'm the artistic director of the North Shore Chamber Music Festival, and we're presenting the next installment of our on-stage, off-stage Masters workshop. And it really is a great pleasure for me, a great personal pleasure, to present a very dear friend and a very old friend of mine, the Associate Concertmaster of Boston Symphony, Alexander Velinzon. Alexander is a professor at Longest School in Boston. He has led orchestras basically all over the world, in the Americas, in Europe, in Asia. We'll talk about it after the masterclass. And we have one of our early recipients of the Arcadi Fomin Scholarship Fund, Lalita Svete. She joins us from Cologne. Um, and I will give the reins to Alexander to conduct the masterclass, and we'll join you at the end. Please.
Thank you so much, Vadim, for having me here, and I'm very much looking forward to hearing Lalita play. We will try to structure it sort of like an audition. So if you don't mind, Lalita, I'll ask you to play Exposition of the Mozart Concerto. Which one are you playing today?
Number 5.
Number 5. And then Romantic Concerto, which will be the Brahms. And if you could play both of those one after another, I won't say anything. Just because this is what would happen in a normal audition setting. One of the things that makes it a little bit challenging is switching styles, going from classical to romantic to whatever else they might throw at you. So let's try to do that. And once you're done with the concertos, we will come back to the Mozart perhaps and talk a little bit.
Thank you.
Let's begin. Wonderful. Let us hear a little bit of the drums. Fantastic. Bravo. Beautiful playing. So, of course, my pleasure. In an audition, at least in the United States, I think that's about as much as you would get to play. It would most likely also be without a piano, although at least in our orchestra, in the final round, we always have a pianist present, where which makes it actually for me always much easier to play when you have some support. Great. So what I wanted to see, and which you quite well delivered was the difference in sound approach between the Mozart and the Brahms. But let's go back to the Mozart, please, and just wanted to mention a few things. Because it's such a short, compressed time that you're on stage, it's really important that all your musical intentions are 110% clear in every note you play. So there is no time to get into it. Like sometimes we would, when you play the whole piece, there's time to get into it mentally and violinistically. Unfortunately, in the orchestra audition, we don't have that. So could you please start again? And before you even start, really have your phrase planned out so that from the first sound you make, I know, or the committee knows, what you're trying to tell us with your playing, because I had a feeling that you were still a little bit looking for something. Could we hear at the beginning again, please? That was beautiful. So now I think the word I was looking for is you should start a little bit more brave, just as you did now. I also have a question for you. I can clearly hear that you're trying to achieve a certain style of sound, but I do have a question about your vibrato. So yes, you have a minimal vibrato, but you do have it. However, some notes you choose to completely omit the vibrato. If I were sitting behind the screen, I would find that a little bit unclear. I personally feel that if you use vibrato, which I vote for vibrato, it should be on every expressive note that you want to make expressive. Right now, there are some inconsistencies, especially as we go on into the allegro. So as you play on, two things. First of all, please make sure that if you're going to use vibrato, use it more consistently. And secondly, precision of your bow strokes in fast passages. That's another thing that we will always be looking for. Small of the string strokes have to be so pure. You can't have us doubting what you're trying to say with your bow. Would you mind playing maybe just, I don't know, 16 bars or so of the allegro? Okay. Great, much better already. Can I please hear this passage at the end? I'm still not clear of your articulation. And I know it may sound like I'm nitpicking a little bit, but unfortunately, we will, behind the screen, the committee would always be trying to hear. It's a lot about bow control, but also about your musical integrity in a way. How exactly are you envisioning? I don't know if you have bar numbers, but can you go from here?
I can, yet now I can hear your sound, but before I couldn't hear you
Ah,
play.
so I was talking about being a little bit even still more precise with your bow articulation in this particular place. Mm-hmm. Would you mind going from tom, tom, tom? Mm-hmm. How about wonderful? Would you mind trying it, making it a little bit more lively, more playful? So it's a little bit. They're a little bit on the heavy side for my taste. Maybe a little bit lighter and more playful. Mm-hmm. For me, this is great. So when I would hear something like that, then I would say, okay, well, this is how this person hears their Mozart, and in this case, I agree with it. But in any case, even if I didn't agree with it, this is very convincing playing. So you should really make sure that from the first second you play, everything is 100% precise. Can you go into the second? To the second.
I still cannot
episode?
hear you. You're playing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Just the playing, I cannot hear.
Oh, you can't hear. Do you have bar numbers?
Yes.
Could you go from bar 74, please? Huh. It's strange that you can't hear me. Great. One more time, please. All these, let me try again and hopefully you will hear me. Yes, no?
Yes,
can you hear me? Ah, okay. So, all these 2+2 strokes, more precision, please. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Keep going. Okay. Lalita? Great. Lalita? Beautiful. Let me ask you a question about the vibrato choices. So this had no vibrato, but this did. To me, it sounded a little bit unnatural, perhaps. Can you try to even them out in this department? Great. Thank you. So think about those little things. In general, you play really, really well. But when you are in a group of people playing same music, you really want to make sure that it's 100% precise and 100% makes sense what you do, because this vibrato, it's only one note. I know it's a tiny little thing, but to my ear, it sounded a little bit strange. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay? I believe we need to be moving on. Your Brahms sounded great. I really don't have much to say, except the all those passage in the middle of the first page. Try to be a little bit more precise rhythmically.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Just because I don't know if you have performed it with the orchestra or not yet, but there's really not that much room for rhythmic flexibility, unfortunately for us. Otherwise, I loved your sound, your tone, and your bow technique in this was great. So I'd rather just go on to the excerpts if you don't mind.
Okay. Yes, of course.
What would you like to start with? So we have 3 today, right? You have 3 prepared. Right. We have Strauss Don Juan, Schumann Scherzo from Symphony Number 2, and an excerpt from Mahler 5.
Yes.
Which would you like to start with?
Schumann Scherzo.
Sounds good. Okay. The tempo.
Yes.
Very, very good. It's one of those where I don't think you can get a job anywhere until you master this one. It's yeah. So a couple of things. Tempo. It's very, very fast, but does it have to be this fast? I think the character of this movement is not. We feel like it's a virtuoso piece when we play it, but actually it should be very light and happy and smiley even. So it's 2 things. It's the tempo, and also it's a little bit of your stroke. It sounded like you were trying to play it as fast as you can. Can you pull the tempo ever so slightly and rather think about the character? Try to hear the accompaniment. You must have heard this piece. I don't know if you've played it in the orchestra or not, but it's bum, 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 bum. Sometimes you phrase it that way, and sometimes you don't. Sometimes you keep running. So let's try it again, and take the edge of the tempo and lighten up your stroke just a little bit. Okay. Lolita. Great. Okay, let me stop you. Better. The tempo is better. It's not so hectic. it doesn't make me as nervous as the first time when you played it. However, there are still a couple of places which are awkward violinistically where you take the liberty of taking time. Unfortunately, when there are 30 violins playing it, we don't have such liberty. Could you play it again just until the second ending? Don't go any further. And make sure that when you have this awkward string crossing, the pulse doesn't change. Because unfortunately, people sitting behind the screen, they're going. And if you take a little bit, this much liberty once on this page is okay. But if you're constantly doing the same thing when it's uncomfortable, it tells us something that there are some difficulties, okay? Try again. Great. Okay, so this was, you hear what I'm talking about, so you did it really, really well. I would love to hear even more difference between, so there is a short phrase, and then there, sorry, then another one, and then it's a longer phrase. Can I hear more difference? Strictly speaking, looking at the music, there's an accent in bar 1, in bar 4, sorry, yes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, but then there are no accents in bar 5, correct?
For me, it's in bar 6.
And then there's no accent, right? So it tells you that there's a certain phrasing to this passage. Can I hear that again? A little bit more clarity of that difference. That's great. The last thing about this little bit I will say is that regardless of the tempo or dynamics, you can never lose your bouncing stroke. You begin with such, right now, with such a nice, clean spiccato, but sometimes when you cross over 2 strings, your bow sits on the string a little bit too much. And that's another thing that we will always be listening for, is how you can sustain the bounce, at least until it gets very loud later on the page. So, very last time, I promise, try to keep the spiccato going, and you don't have to take the first repeat. Continue playing. Great, great. Lolita? Thank you for stopping. So, again, sounds wonderful. What I don't hear enough of is the range of your dynamics. And I know that on the internet, it's not always telling, but I think I can see that when you drop to your piano after the second ending, it's not really piano. It really needs to be, your bow should only be going up and down. It should not be moving this way at all. It has to be that soft. And even more importantly, when there is a small ritenuto, then you have to go back to the same tempo. Your tempo is not the same when you come back. You know what I'm talking about? So those, again, I know it sounds so pedantic, like I'm looking with a microscope, but unfortunately, when you play with a group of people, that's what unites us in a violin section, because we're really precise about the directions. So pick up to bar 11 and going on. Is that okay place to start for you?
Maybe.
Great, great. Yeah. It's better. So what I think is this tempo, which is not the tempo you started with, it's a bit slower. But I like it. I think this is your tempo for the beginning also. In fact, I always think that you should probably look for the most awkward place in an excerpt, find the right tempo for you, and then use that tempo for the whole piece, for the whole excerpt. Just a little sort of a trick that I learned for 28, that subito piano. In order for it to come out as an actual subito piano, I would put a mental accent on the note before. So daba 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 pam. Can you do it just a little bit under tempo, please? From anywhere, a couple of bars before.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, but there's no time there. Daba 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 daba.
Yes.
One more time. Yes. Great. So now it was an actual subito piano, which again, everybody is waiting to, anticipating to hear. What else was there? Mostly it's about finding the right stroke and the dynamics. The dynamics are so important. In fact, I would love to hear the very beginning of this page again until their tempo, if you don't mind playing it again. From beginning to bar 20, or 21. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And please focus on two things: the bouncing stroke and the piano when you get to it, so that even from Boston, I can hear the difference between your forte and your piano. Better. I still think that if you imagine this is not a, if you look at this page and it's full of 16th notes, and it makes us feel tense, at least it makes me feel tense. But I think if you feel like this is a scherzo, it's a fun, happy, light movement. It's not a bombastic Mahler-like scherzo. It will change your perspective, because even now, every time you have a crescendo, your character changes slightly into just a little bit more tense. it's not aggressive, but just a little bit more tense. Try, this will be the last time, and then we're gonna move on. Try it one more time, and even in your crescendo, even when you reach your top dynamic, it's still a scherzo. Try that, please. Yes, yes, something like that. Something like that. This is one of those excerpts that we'll never, we will all have to practice no matter what. Even when we think we mastered it, there's still more work to do. But I think this is the right direction. We'll always start with what the music is about, then think, why is this excerpt is on the list? It's the stroke, spiccato, and then try to combine the two. Rather than just seeing allegro vivace, okay, I have to play it as fast as I can. It's rarely the case, right? Great. Strauss?
Yes.
So I'm guessing just the first page, correct?
Yes.
First page of Strauss?
Yes, first page.
Yes. Great, great. I love this piece, I have to say. So you sound fantastic. A couple of things, and I'm not 100% sure that it was you or maybe it was the connection. How do you feel about all the rests that are on this piece? Do you just go 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're kind of resting, or they're part of the music?
They're
I
part
think they
of
should
the
be.
music.
They
Yes.
really should be. I did not feel it when you played this. They were just kind of empty spaces. Especially the beginning, the first 8 bars. Tararам, tabararam, tam taram, pam, tararam, tabararam. You have to fill that space with some sort of energy. Would you mind going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 bars? Just 8 bars. Yes, great, wonderful. Then another aspect which happened several times through this page is rhythmic integrity. So, da-ram, da-ba-da-dam. That triplet, you're trying to make it expressive, which I appreciate. And another person might appreciate, but when you play it together with other people, they might not appreciate it because you will not be together with them. So, tabadadam. It's more, it's expressive, yet a little bit percussive at the same time. Tabadadam. Almost imagine trumpets playing that. You know what I mean? Can you just play that gesture?
Yeah.
So, 2 bars. Tabadadam. It's one kind of one unit. Yes, that's better. One more time, and then let's go. Then keep playing. Great. Great. Couple of more somewhat boring things, but very, very important for an audition. The way he writes sometimes a small 16th note rest, and sometimes he doesn't. So the best place to look is this place. There's a rest, and then there are no rests. That difference has to be absolutely clear. So connection, bow changes, strictly speaking, have to be flawless here. You make a break, and then absolutely smooth. Can you just do those couple of bars, please? And then stop. Yeah, and how about vibrato on all the long notes? Good. The rhythmically, it's very clear, but now I miss the heroic nature of this. It's a little bit too dolce. It still needs to be powerful. Yes. Can you not make a break at all after the C natural connected to the next? Great, great. And actually, you know, we're talking about dots and dashes here, but that creates a much longer phrase than da-da-dum, ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum. It creates one arch. The same goes to when the theme appears. I'm guessing it's bar 9. First, in the first bar of the theme, there is a small rest, but then there is none. But you're playing it the way you feel the phrase, which is not what he wrote. Can we try it again? Right from here. From here.
Sorry.
Yes. That's it. Lalita. The first note you play here, more heroic. You're a little bit too gentle with it.
Sorry.
Yes. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. You're still cheating a little bit and going.
Yes.
Then you're lifting your bow, and then you. That would probably be forgiven because it's just such an intense spot. But ideally, if you could still connect the two notes. Last time, the spot, and then we're gonna jump forward, please. Great, great. That was great. One thing I'll mention, you just did a giant diminuendo, which is not there at the last bar you played. You should sustain the intensity. Okay, let's jump forward to letter B. Can you start 3 bars before B, please? Okay, let's talk about the character a little bit. What are they, in your view? What kind of character? What do they represent? How would you describe them?
Very childlike, but very like, I don't know, almost like a fairy. I don't know, but it doesn't quite fit into the, but very light and
light and
nimble.
I guess playful maybe. Can you just play that motif and make it as clear character-wise as you can? Just that. One more time. One more time. Better. I recommend starting this, again, technically speaking, from the string, so that your first note has more articulation to it. And also a little vibrato will go a long way to making it a little bit more playful. Good. And also, you played, both times you played through this, you played this figure at a much slower tempo, which sometimes is performed that way, but actually it's not here. So it's one of those things where you take a risk by doing that, because some people will say, well, Strauss didn't write anything there. So maybe try to keep it a little bit more straightforward. Great. And then letter C, please. C to the end. Good. Very good. Again, I'm going to talk about dynamics. That piano, the subito piano, it has to be so drastic and so sudden. You should really practice just that. Tam padam, and then nothing. Can I hear that upbeat to the, so it's 3 bars after.
Just one question. The question, for me in the score it says pianissimo and it's on the first beat.
No, it's on the second note.
I assume that no one plays it on. Yes. Okay.
It should start on the second note, on the G sharp. Sorry, on the B. On the B.
Yes. Okay. It's just written in my score that way, but
so maybe
it's difficult
that's
to manage to play.
Maybe that's why. So could you try doing just that? Tam padam. Lalita, may I recommend a different bowing? It's not a must, but I think it works better if you go down, down, up, and then you stay in that place where you end up, so you don't have to jump around with your bow. Like this. think it works better.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's easier.
Yeah, there are a couple of things that just, yeah, they work. And actually, when we play this piece, we use the printed bowings, which is what you did, tam padam. But for the audition, I think what you want is to sound your best, and nobody's gonna fault you for doing something maybe unorthodox if it works, right? So always look at these things from your own perspective. What makes you sound better? Shall we move to the Mahler? Hear a little bit of that.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. Very well done. Couple of observations about just generally Mahler. Living, somebody who grew up in Vienna, I feel a little bit strange talking about this from Boston, but I really believe that in Mahler, he writes so many directions. This is actually excerpt where there are relatively few, but in my opinion, they should all be, pardon me, hugely exaggerated.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, if we could go backward and start in bar, well, at number 6, if you don't mind starting in 6,
Mm-hmm.
and look at every accent and especially at every one of these hairpins, and imagine that they go to the limit of what is possible at this tempo. Make them over the top expressive. Not just a little bit, not a hint, but over the top. Would you mind trying that again, please? Okay, Lalita, Lalita. Good. This is much better. Let's try it again. And your starting dynamic, it's not just the dynamic, it's the quality of sound. I think is a little bit too present. It does say espressivo, but it's also pianissimo. Would you mind starting a little bit more flottando and making your accents here and here? I don't know how it will translate over Zoom, but like that. No. Really lean into those notes. Just play 4 bars, please. Yes, that's much better. What about all the eighth notes in this whole excerpt? I feel like you're not caring enough about them. They just go by da ra ram. Aren't they part of? For me, small notes are often more expressive than the long notes. Long notes can take care of themselves, but a little bit more left hand on the small notes. One more time, please. Great, great. Perhaps I misled you a little bit. Yes to vibrato, but the same calm character as you had before. So not a hyper type of vibrato, but vibrato nevertheless. We will come back to this aspect a little bit later, but let's move forward a little bit to this glissandos. So there's a gliss, an accent, and then a hairpin, all in one bar. Can I hear that? Just that bar. Yes. Yeah, I think also that was better. Your gliss is very proper. Can you slide more into it? This way? Okay. With the third finger, I think. Yes, yeah, something like that. And then the very last note you just played. That eighth note, it's so beautiful. You kind of just go by, you let them go by as if it's just a simple upbeat. I think it's more special than that. Same spot and go to the end. Great, great. When there are no markings, expressive markings, don't do any. For instance, last couple of bars. But second bar, there's nothing there. Yep. But because you're trying to put your musical thoughts into this, you are naturally making yet another phrase, but he is very specific about what he wants or doesn't want. Okay, so let me hear the very beginning of this excerpt again. Very calm, yet expressive. Lalita, Lalita, Lalita. It's, it's, it's very, very beautiful. I wish you would try to achieve longer phrases by not making every bow expressive. I hear a lot of so it's not there, especially a few bars later where there's an accent, but the next note should just float. Don't go ta-ram pom like you would in a Mozart concerto, perhaps. So little things like that, stylistically, I think will go a long way in Mahler, well, in everything we talked about today, but especially in Mahler. When there is some expressive markings, you exaggerate them, but when there are none, you go into this sound or this character that you're trying to create and just stay. Don't try to make big waves, because he writes plenty of waves when he wants them. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So generally speaking, for the orchestral excerpts, I would say paying attention to small details that sometimes we can get away with by interpreting in our solo music. For the orchestral parts, we really should stick to what we see on the page. Of course, there are some traditions. Traditionally, there is a small ritenuto here. Traditionally, there is a shift or slide there. But generally speaking, you really need to be much more strict with the text. And it's just a slightly different approach. In the end, it's still about the character of music, the sound, which you have a beautiful sound. But those little things can just take you to the next level and be very successful.
Thank you very much.
It was great hearing you. Hi, Vadim.
I am back. Bravo, Lalita. It's
Bravo, Lalita. Yes.
good to hear you after a year or so that I haven't heard you play. Um,
Almost.
and Alexander, I think this is first time that I properly heard a masterclass of yours. Uh, very
Perhaps.
very inspiring and incredible details, which I know I will be using myself. Um, let's have a very brief conversation. I have one question from myself, and Lalita, you're welcome to ask, of course, as well. It's a question that fascinates me simply because of the nature of my professional life. I travel and I play with different orchestras. I travel and play with different musicians that come from a variety of traditions. Just feeding off what Alexander you just said about traditions of the interpretation. You have led orchestras in the United States, in Germany, in England, in Asia. Um, is there something that you could say that there is one thread that unites all of these traditions, or a great differences that one in your position, being a guest concertmaster, when you do that, that one has to adjust and adapt to different styles of playing?
It's a very good question. And it's true when so my base is in Boston, so I feel like Boston style is now almost like my own because I've been here for so many years. Uh, but when I travel, it is somewhat of an adjustment for me especially in more classical repertoire. If I am in Europe, in German-speaking countries like in Germany, in Austria, it's I trust that, for instance, when I go to Germany and play Mozart symphonies, every time I feel like I have to slightly be more, actually, what I was talking about today with you, even more precision in my style, in my strokes. I think American style of playing is a little bit more robust and powerful would be probably an overstatement, but American orchestras tend to play out a lot. And in my experience, I found when I play classical repertoire in Europe, it's more about small details, and it doesn't have to be quite so big, but it has to be even more precise, even more beautiful. So those little things, do they apply to audition process? I don't know. I think in the end, everybody is looking for beautiful sound, beautiful phrasing, and what we will often do in our auditions here is we will ask players who advance to the final stages, we will ask them to play something differently, which is extremely telling. Very often people learn to play one way and they do it extremely well on the highest level. But actually, the job is about flexibility. One week there is one conductor who wants your spiccato to be bouncing to the ceiling, and then the next conductor comes and he wants everything in the same composer, completely different approach. So the job is to be able to do all of those things. So I think if it's a good player, if it's a good musician with a sense of style and sense of musical style, that person would succeed in any country, in any setting. But flexibility, I think, is the key. I don't know if that answers your question.
Very, excuse me, very, very much so. And actually, flexibility is something that I myself think about quite often. Well, especially when we're in a situation, when I'm in a situation of playing the same repertoire with different in different countries, one after another. That has happened
Mhm.
number of times when I would play the same piece, let's say, I don't know, in England, and then next week I will repeat it in Austria or in United States. There would be inevitably you have to adjust, and it's for me it's always very inspiring to feed off what I hear. Uh, at the end of the day, music making is a dialogue. Lalita, anything from your side? Lalita is just very recent graduate of Musikuniversität in Vienna. She's now has moved to Cologne and is a member of a number of um, authentic performance groups. She in my experience of working with Lolita, what I always enjoy is how versatile your tastes are and your ability. Anything you want to ask Mr. Velinzon?
I guess, especially because I am now applying for different auditions, and it is stressful to think about all these things you have to do just in few minutes, um, mentally, and also just how to prepare for those things, because of course, even if you do practice all these small details, and that helps, of course, but then coming to the stage, and sometimes there is you know
Screen.
you see the jury or you don't see them, and just physically and mentally, how do you prepare for these things?
Oh, that's a loaded question.
Difficult question.
we all we all struggle with the same issues. I would say uh, I will be boring and I'll say repetition
Okay.
and experience. sometimes, indeed, there are people who win their first audition. There are very, very, very few of those people. Mostly, it's about gaining experience and learning from your mistakes. Um, Screen can throw you off, but in the end, you just have to be, how do I put it? You should still treat your audition as a performance. I wouldn't go on stage thinking that I have to observe my rests and I have to, you know, do these small things. That work is done at home, and then on stage, you should still present the music. It's very hard to play Don Juan by yourself without the sound around you. But you just have to focus on the character of the pieces and trust that the small detail work was already done at home. Um, I think it just comes from experience. And actually, you talked about screen. I once had an experience where many years ago in Europe, in fact, where I went for an audition expecting a screen, and then as I went into this huge room, there were like 80 people sitting there, no screen, and that threw me off completely. I did not expect that. So sometimes, it works the other way as well. Um, I don't know. Try to find in each piece that you play something you focus on. Like when they put Strauss in front of you, maybe even put a small pencil mental note. In this piece is about that. And it can be very personal. It's not like you have to follow some historical perspectives. What's important in this piece for you? What helps you with this piece if you focus on your bow, on the dynamics? It can be anything at all that helps you. I find that if I put, and my students also say the same thing, just tiny notes like code words on top of your music, it helps them refocus, especially when you have to go from a slow movement of Mozart symphony to the Schumann scherzo, or sometimes if it's a really mean committee, they will do the opposite. They will first make you play Don Juan, and then they will give you a slow movement of Mozart. We try not to do that, but sometimes it will happen. Something to mentally refocus you, something visual, sometimes may help.
Wonderful.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
very much.
Alexander. What strikes me, I personally have never taken a professional audition, although I did it when we were back in school at
That's
Juilliard.
cool, yeah.
I didn't do very well. But in all seriousness, and I talk about it to my students when they prepare for auditions, uh, is that at the end of the day, it is about music. It is about music's character, and it is about your representing yourself as a musician. Of course, the attention to detail is paramount, but we play music at the end of the day, and I'm
Yeah,
sure that any and every committee member, as the highest goal, is looking for that. Is looking for
exactly.
musician.
I always say that what guides me when I listen to the auditions is one simple question. Would I like to sit next to this person for the next 30 years?
Mm,
Do I want to sit next to a person who nails every note and I don't like their sound or the way they make music? Or perhaps I can be more forgiving about a couple of notes they missed, but I like how they phrase. There has to be something attractive in the sound and in the playing. And for me, it's a no-brainer. I would definitely would want to sit with somebody like that. So that's how I see it, and I really believe that most people, orchestra or not, are looking for attractive playing, an attractive, yes, intonation has to be good, yes, rhythm has to be correct, but there is more subtlety to it. And if you focus on that, that would be very helpful.
Great. On that note, we say thank you to Mr. Velinzon for sharing his experience, wisdom, knowledge, and whatnot. Wish Lalita the best of luck. I
Best of luck to you.
Thank you so
You'll
much.
do great, no doubt. It's great to hear you
Thank you.
play.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
and to all our audience watching on our platform and on the Violin channel, thank you for tuning in. Please keep in touch. Look at our website at nscmf.org for our future offerings, and we can't wait to see you both in person and online. All the best.